As a broadcaster, I've met a lot of interesting folks, and each of them has an interesting story to tell. I'm Charlie McAlexander. For the next half hour, I want to share with you a story about a remarkable man. Olympic swim coach, women's swim coach, that's what most of us know about University of Georgia coach Jack Bauerle. But who is Jack Bauerle, and how did he get to where he is today?
Carl Sandburg once wrote, "Nothing happens unless first a dream." Now, where did I hear that? Well, Jack told me that's his life's motto. I had a chance to visit him in his rural country home in Elberton, Georgia, and I learned there's a whole lot more to Jack Bauerle than swimming. One of the first things I learned about Jack is that he's passionate about his cars.
Jack,
how you doing, Mac?
This is some place, and then to get to this fabulous place in this vintage 68 Mustang, it looks better than brand new.
Well, better. I've just spent a hell of a lot of money on it. So, but a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, is a swim coach. He started Swim Atlanta's program, which is probably the most successful swim program in the whole country. Gave this to me for a song and a dance probably about 7 or 8 years ago. So I know I just spent more than what I got it from or gave to him, but it's nice to have, and it's the right color. Still has the original Philco radio in there. Gets 2 stations, 96 and 1340, 2 AM stations. Other than that, it sounds like you're coming in from Mars. I wanted my sons to have a little appreciation for the old stuff too. I think it's important. And how's that for an excuse for getting a car? Is that pretty good?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Jack is a zealot for cars, but I found his home to be full of artifacts that demonstrate his passion for hunting, basketball, swimming, baseball, boxing, and the list goes on.
I've been certainly characterized as being fairly competitive sometimes, and no matter what. I sort of believe every day is sort of a competition, but I think sometimes I'm driven more by fear of failure than anything else. I didn't want to ever be embarrassed by not doing something well. And so I worked real hard at it. And but you know, I'm in the greatest profession in the world. And you know, coaching or teaching. I mean, I view them as very much the same. Because my aspirations were tied to others' aspirations. So to make them good helped you. And I mean, it was a perfect symbiotic relationship, you know. So I never, you know, you're not really doing, you know, any good coach will tell you, basically you're in there for kids, you know, because hours and money-wise, when you first start, it doesn't make any sense to do. But there's something that takes you to it, and just when you're helping people do their dreams, and next thing you know, or accomplish their dreams, next thing you know, they just earned you yours. And it's it's a fortunate way to go. But I don't know what the deal was with all this and how I was brought up, but I just really never wanted to mess up when it got down to the bitter end. And that's probably the thing I probably have never said. I was probably driven more from fear of failure than trying to be successful.
Jack's a competitive and successful guy. It all started as a scrappy kid who had to know as much about dancing as he did street sports.
Let's talk about Philly and growing up there, what it was like, what you were into, how it influenced you.
Heck, Mac, it was a great place to grow up. I grew up in a great spot. I was outside of Philadelphia, probably about 15 miles or so. I don't know, pretty close, but in a very typical middle-class neighborhood. And a lot of kids. Every kid in the neighborhood was about 2 years, all the guys were 2 years older than I, so I had to learn how to survive in sports. Anytime I played a kid my age, I felt pretty confident. And we played stuff all day long. We never came inside.
You were a pretty slick dancer in Philly, and that had to be strong there. I mean, that was you had to be able to do something on the dance floor, and you got the Dick Clark area, you got all that kind of stuff. And later I'm going to ask you to get up and show me the Philly Stomp.
Yeah, I can do the Philly Stomp still, even with a fake knee. And heck, I think I won a twist contest when I was 10. You know, Chubby Checker was from Philly too. So we had that, there's a history there of music. And my high school, we always had a mixer, and all the girls would come in from all the private schools, and we just danced the whole time. I mean, it was a 3-hour deal, but we were soaked in sweat. You know, everybody danced. It was no one stood around. It was pretty cool.
Didn't you have a little system set up where you got more girls in than visiting guys?
Yeah, it was really good.
Tell me that story.
Well, it was a great system. I was on the student council, and we had this great rule that if you were a guy, you could come in as a guest. Like one of us would have to bring you in, but any girl that wanted to come could come for a nominal fee. Any girl, it doesn't matter. You didn't have to be a guest if you just wanted to show up. So it was probably about 2 to 1 female to male. So if you couldn't find a dance, that was probably going to be your last chance in your life. That was the best odds you'll ever get. Started swimming when I was about 5 or 6. You know, every time I look back to something, somebody helped me do something. It was a lifeguard. I fell in love with this lifeguard. I thought he was the coolest guy, Abe Abrahamson, and he had a Alfa Romeo sports car, and I just would do. When he was guarding, I'd swim in front of him all day long, back and forth. He taught me how to do butterfly when I was about 6, and then I started swimming. My brothers were in the YMCA, Abington YMCA, which is the next township over. And I started just swimming. The next thing I knew, I was a swimmer. But I pretty much loved every other sport. I loved football, basketball. Basketball probably my first love. And then I sort of gotten into surfing just when I borrowed some kid's board when he was taking a rest down at Long Beach Island, New Jersey.
A world-class swim coach, hot cars, and surfing. Yep, surfing. Who doesn't wish to be that guy?
This is from one of my better friends in life, Keith Broom. This is actually a heavy board. But sometimes it's actually a workable board. The fin goes right in there. But this is a little bit of cherry and walnut, and it's just a beautiful board. He can make anything. He's getting ready to make a new table for me, but we surf in Costa Rica and Nicaragua together 2 or 3 times a year, and hopefully down the road about 10 times a year. But anyhow, it's sort of a constant reminder. It's going to be suspended here, and it doesn't have much to do with being in the woods and hunting, but it reminds me of something else I like to do all the time. It's a pretty special gift. Surfing and just being in the ocean was a great thing. It was a challenge all the time. I used to drive my mom crazy because my favorite time was during the storms and when the hurricanes came.
Talk about that. You have surfed in hurricanes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right before you can't.
What the heck were you thinking, Jack?
Not much. My mom actually wouldn't even go up to watch and I used to. A lot of times the day before it was real nasty. It was because the waves come from everywhere, so that was fun. So I usually body surfed on that one because it was a little. You can't really negotiate surfing too well. But the next day, the day after hurricanes, always the prettiest day. And then the winds change and it holds up the waves, and that's when you go in. But the ocean was just good to me. I was really, I'm at home there, and plus. I knew how to negotiate waves at a very early age. I'm not exaggerating. People think you do. I'd get up. I'd be in right when sun up came. And this is even when I was a little kid. And then I'd come right back to the house. The house is 50 yards, 75 yards away. And I'd come eat and then go back. And we probably were in the water sometimes 8 to 10 hours a day. It was incredible.
And family is important to Jack. Very important.
Maybe a bicycle. That's on Christmas Day. Yeah, that's me on the bottom. That's Bobby and Teddy. My mom didn't know it, but she named us after the Kennedys, Bob, Teddy, and Jack. But anyhow.
Perhaps Jack's greatest fan, like many of us, was his mother.
She's a hard one to explain, but we had 3 boys and we were it. And then my brothers thought out of the 3 boys, I was even more it. They called me the 3rd and begotten son. So I was spoiled rotten. But I think I was spoiled rotten by affection, not by material things, which means a lot. But anyhow, she was my greatest fan. And, you look back and you wonder what motivated you. And a lot of the motivation was, quite frankly, was to make her proud. And,
You did that?
Yeah, I wish she was still around. It's, I think about her, literally every day. It's pretty amazing. And just because some of the things have been great, you know, with my own boys and career, you know, I just wish she would. But I honestly believe she's watching this, because she was something else.
Tough a place as Philly is, its attitude, its survival mode, I guess you could say. You got to be a pretty tough guy to live in that city, don't you?
Yeah, you do. You know, I wasn't right in the city, but I played city kids all the time, and it does put a little bit of an edge on you, particularly if you're playing basketball. I love sports, actually. The less it was monitored by a parent or an adult, it was more fun. You know, we'd go to a playground, we'd stay all day. You know, we'd take a couple dimes for some Cokes, but we play all day. And then you defended your turf. If you won, you stayed on the court. You know, it was cool.
What about baseball?
Loved it, and love it more now. I have baseball books all over the place. This is the downstairs, Mac. This is a pretty neat little area, too.
It's never enough to sit and chat about Jack's passions, which are many. So he took us all over his Elberton country home.
Chrissy, NCAA champion, Woman of the Year. Sheila Taormina, Olympic medalist, gold medalist. This is one of my favorite little corners of the house, actually. This is Arthur McCanty, who is probably the best fight referee of all time. This is Arthur here sending Frazier back to his neutral corner there after he put Ali on his tail in Madison Square Garden.
Jack's love for boxing runs deep, too. Yes, sir, the boy from Philly's got it in his blood.
The massive challenger has a 13-inch reach advantage.
I just remember it because we used to listen to everything on radio. It was really special. I loved Ali, but Marvin Hagler was my favorite boxer of all time, and I loved Floyd Patterson, and I remember when Liston beat Patterson and knocked him out. It almost killed me, and I was so happy when Ali knocked Liston into the next week. So.
But boxing stories notwithstanding, Jack also took me downstairs to talk about baseball. And talk baseball we did.
This one's from Robin Roberts, whose son Rick owns Buffalo Cafe right here in Athens. Robin was a Hall of Fame pitcher for the Phils, and my mom.
Like basketball and swimming, Jack's Philly roots brought him a great love for the national pastime.
I grew up next to Bucky Walters, who was a Major League Baseball star, and this is the first guy who threw me a baseball. He was a 27-game winner, MVP. They didn't have the Cy Young Award until the 50s, early 50s, but he was, so if you were the best pitcher, then you could win the MVP too, which he did. And 1939, they lost 4 straight games to the New York Yankees, and then in 1940, he came back and won 2 out of 4 games of the World Series, and they beat Detroit. And he also hit a home run in that series, but he and his partner won all 4 games of that series, and the next time 2 20-game winners won all 4 games of a World Series was when Randy Johnson and Schilling did it for Arizona. I think that was 2001, if I remember. So I was sitting there at home watching the World Series, and they go, well, it's been a long time since 2 20-game winners have won all 4 games. I said, I knew who the hell that is. And so I would come home from college from Georgia. I'd drop my stuff, kiss my mom, hug her, and then I'd run over and see Bucky, and then he'd tell me baseball stories about DeRoche or about Yogi Berra, you name it. There were some wild stories. It was just great stuff.
Swimming stories, boxing stories, baseball stories. Now what's missing? Oh yeah, did I mention football?
This is pretty special to me, Mac. This is obviously from Coach Dooley. Best helmet in the world too, by the way.
It is.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest looking helmet. But anyhow, it says to my great friend Jack, Georgia's greatest head coach. I'm not sure about that, but it meant a lot that he would say it. And I just love working for Coach. Was a dream come true. And we had some of the greatest coaches in history here with Coach Dooley and Coach McGill, and to be on staff at the same time with the likes of that, it was a pretty big teaching moment. And I always tell people you never had to be told what to do. All you had to do was watch. And if you just watch those guys the way they did it, and it was terrific. But anyhow, my relationship with Coach is far past being a coach on his staff. We're just great friends, and I have great admiration for him. And he's had a lot of admiration for the success of our program. I think it meant an awful lot, not just because of what transpired athletically, but academically also, because that means a lot to Coach. He's the smartest coach that coached football, I think. So, so anyhow, this is a pretty neat thing, and means an awful lot to me for lots of reasons. We spent some good time together. And this is I guess a lifetime achievement. This is when you know you're getting a little bit older, from the, I guess, National Collegiate Scholastic Swimming Trophy. It's sort of, I guess, an old man's Heisman.
But to get to this greatest of swimming trophies for a coach, Jack had to first get to Georgia.
Your journey to Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Great trip, great trip. I was pretty much set to go to Ohio State. I had a full ride to Ohio State. And I came down here. And the way I tell is this: when I went to Ohio State, it was right after, it was during the Kent State thing and a lot of unrest. And we had something happen on campus where they had to separate part of the campus. I saw guys put in rounds of ammunition, bayonets on, right in front of me, as close as we are. And I thought, I'm not sure about this. And then I came down about a week later on my recruiting trip. I ate at Swamp Guinea, which was a great place to eat out here in Holt, Georgia. I had my first hush puppies and barbecue. I had a date with a senior. I was, 18-year-old, 17-year-old.
Probably wasn't an ugly girl either, was she?
Nah, she was a neat gal, and poor gal. I mean, have put up with me, some kid from Philly, and then I was in 2 drag races that night out on the Atlanta Highway too. And
wait a minute.
Yeah, so I said,
wait a minute. Yeah. Tell me about the drag races.
It was cool. Ross Bradford, I hope he sees this thing. Ross swam on the team and had a 289, but it was not a 289. It was souped up. He never lost a race at Georgia. And next thing you know, I'm saying go, and he, hanging out the window going ready, go out in the Atlanta Highway, and we picked up a race at the Burger King. So this was a real different world, but all of a sudden it was a heck of a lot of fun. And so I called my mom and dad. I said, I couldn't have had a better night or a better day. This is unbelievable. I'm coming to Georgia. And they said, you come home and talk about it. But thankfully they let me. As I always say, I picked Georgia for all the right reasons,
Yeah.
But anyhow, and then that's how I ended up at Georgia. I just picked this to go to school, and probably more than anything else appealed to me were just the kids and the people. I had a blast down here. I had a great time. So.
Bauerle swam for Georgia from 1971 to 74. He became an assistant here and then a head coach at the ripe old age of 27?
At first, Mac, I just tried to survive here because when I walked in, there were about 3 or 4 Olympic coaches in the SEC, and I was 27 years old, and I went to a meeting, didn't say a word, and just tried to work hard and do my best. And then things just changed at Georgia. Coach Dooley was a great AD. Liz Murphy was the one who recommended me to him, and so I got my job at a ripe old age of 27 years old, and $8,000 a year. I couldn't have been happier. So everything worked out pretty well.
Jack was the head coach for the women's swim team in the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, China. And he's been an assistant coach on the international stage several times. Now, that's a resume not many have earned. I was really impressed. Was he?
Not really, because I sort of know who they picked. I know them better than the other people. But no, I'm not awed by it. I'm awed by the responsibility, when I was coaching in Beijing. I've been real fortunate. I've done some world championships too, and it's almost, to us, they're almost as big as the Olympic Games. They're not as big as to the public. But last summer, Shanghai, and then, I'm trying to remember the other ones, Montreal, also in Barcelona. So swimming has been a vehicle to take me all over the place, which I'm forever thankful, because I think travel changes your perspective and gives you a great appreciation for what you have here and a great appreciation for what people are other places and what they go through, because we have it pretty easy. And but I think I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my swimmers, and the only reason I got there was because for years, every 4 years, we put kids on the Olympic team that were that good. And you don't get to be in that spot unless you have kids on the team. So I was put there by my athletes, and more than me.
We've talked about interesting things you've done. It's been mentioned you're involved in a burglary or stopping a burglar.
Oh, yeah. It was 87 or 88. We have to look it up. It was a home game against Auburn. I went in to get on. Actually, I went in to get my jacket. It was down at Stegman Hall, and we had a group of people. It was the Auburn-Georgia game, and I went in, and when I walked in, I got knocked out in the office. I got laid out completely, and I got to be careful how I tell the story. I get a little feisty thinking about it still. So anyhow, I woke up, and then I came to, and I saw him outside of the office in the pool, and this is old Stegman pool. So we started one of these running arounds. All right, you know, it's like trying to get somebody chasing around a car. You usually can't do it.
Were you calling him names?
I called him stuff I can't say, and probably worse than what we normally say. And I never stopped yelling at him the entire time. Finally, he hit the fire door and he took off. It opened up. He went right by a couple of my assistant coaches. And I had already picked up 2 barbell plates in the office, and I had 2 of them in my hand, 2 10-pounders. So I was chasing him with those because I told him he might be having near-death experience, you know. And I got real close, within 3 or 4 yards of him one time. We went right out Stegman. That goes out to Lumpkin, and we crossed Lumpkin right over to Baxter. And I thought I had him one time, and someone came in between, and I couldn't get it. So I dropped one, and I kept chasing. He had a red sweatshirt on, which is like camo on a game day. And anyhow, it was mobbed. And I lost him. And my diving coach went back, and I said, I got to find him. I stayed up there, and I caught a glimpse of him. So I did a dead run. And by the time he saw me, you know, I was on him. I did the old helicopter. You know, you just throw him around like that. And when he went down, he lost all his air. I put him down like, boom. And I
popped him a couple
popped
times?
him as hard as I could in the back of the head. His face went down it was sort of dirt and gravel and grass. It wasn't real smooth up there at that time. And then I got him by the neck. I was on his back with my knee, pushing him down, then bringing his head back and trying not to let him breathe. And then all of a sudden, 2 kids came and sort of grabbed me. I took a swing at one of them. Then I realized, they said, "Coach, we play basketball with you."
Oh.
I go, "We'll take care of him." And he was gagging at that time. And I'm thankful those 2 kids were there, because I would have killed him. But so the cops came, and they got him, and one thing led to another. And then they said, "Jack, you're upset right now. Come in after the game, make the statement," and all that stuff. So I did, and I came in after, and they said, "What did you do to that guy?" I said, "Well, you know, I gave him a good shot, but he hadn't gotten air after he fell down, and then I was choking him probably for about 10 or 15 seconds. So he was really hurt." Now, I guess so they said, "Well, we had to clean him up." I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, he went to the bathroom." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Jack, that's the last thing people do when they think they're going to die." I said, "Well," I said, "maybe he's a little closer than I thought." So, but thank God for those guys, you know, that came by. So anyhow,
wow.
They got him for credit card. He had stolen credit cards. He had keys to a stolen vehicle on campus. He had keys to other places on campus. So those guys were really thankful. So it was a pretty wild deal. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was.
Wow.
Yeah. It was really stupid, but, you know, because those guys are a little bit more dangerous than I generally, because, and that was his 2nd assault and battery, evidently. So,
wow.
But my fervent wish is that he doesn't see this. So
he's probably still in jail.
I hope he is. Yeah. I hope he's a repeat offender. So it was pretty wild. Yeah.
This is not a morbid question. People who interview are the people who are famous. Ask, how would you like to be remembered? Hopefully you're going to be around till you're 90. But with all you've done, the people you've met, all the experiences you have, how would you like to be remembered when you leave this planet?
Just a good guy who did his job in a good way. That's all. Real simple. And if anything, I've always wanted to teach my boys, you know, that everybody's important. My dad had a great gift with that, you know, and he treated everybody the same. It didn't matter if it was a guy that was picking up our garbage, or it was our doctor or a lawyer or whoever. Everyone was treated the same. And, you know, and I love that aspect of him. And if I could give some to my boys just to make sure everyone's treated well. And I always tell them, I say, you got an opportunity to make some of them feel pretty good every darn day. And it really takes very little effort. But it's up, you know, we're only here for a short time, so we got to do it right.
Well, what do you think? I think Jack Bauerle is remarkable. The winningest women's swim coach in NCAA history. He's been an Olympic swim coach several times. He not only is an avid outdoorsman, but a life changer, a real treasure, and trust me, he doesn't even know it. Jack's competitive, he's loved by his athletes, and he's a lot of fun. What I've been waiting for this whole interview is to see you do the stomp.
Philly stomp.
Okay, and I'm going to provide the music. And
really?
You provide the stomp, okay?
Right. Yep.
Okay, you ready?
Sure, I'm ready. Let me throw this around. I did this enough when I was a kid. All right, I'm ready.
Ready? The kids in Bristol are sharp as this, so when they do the Bristol stomp, kids start when the joint is jumping when they do the Bristol stomp. Hey, hey. All right, now we got.
But then we're doing a twist?
We're going to do that too.